Uh, Welcome to Chat with Chad. I'm the host, Chad Everett Broshears, and I'm here with my guest, Michael. Michael, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Chad. Hey, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the invite and thank you for all the fun conversation that we have on Facebook. So, you know, you really impressed me, and you also, we had a lot of good laughs on Facebook. So I just wanted to say thank you and
Yeah,
thank you for that.
you're welcome.
Anyway, so yeah,
Appreciate
I'm Mike Cornell. I am from Tampa, Florida. I'm in St. Pete now. I am an entrepreneur, and I just been really taking on the entrepreneur world for the past 6 years, 7 years, and I've done a lot of different things, and I'm a lot into self-development. If you know me, I pretty much grew up in self-development. So doing a business was like basically self-development
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me. Like I said, I grew up in Tampa, and I had a good, I would say I had a decent childhood. And I was very, very shy when I was young. Like from probably 8th grade, I made some kind of decision in 8th grade that I can't be popular or something like that.
Interesting.
So from 9th to 12th grade, I'd like hid from my greatness. Yeah, like I really did. 9th to 12th. And I'm turning 30. I still do hide from my greatness. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't. But I realized from 9th to 12th, I was hiding from my greatness.
Yeah.
I started to get better from there on. But, as I became more into the self-development space, I started to realize more how I was definitely hiding from my greatness. And, I've had a lot of opportunities that I've definitely passed up, and I've had a lot of opportunities that I've taken on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm just I'm just a regular human being that like I want to take my brain to the next level
Yeah.
when it comes to just being the best I can be.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm out to create, and that's what I've been out to create for a long time. Leadership, and just expanding myself.
Yeah. You know what I'd like about it is and I'd like to go through some questions with you, kind of like, the periodized type of questions where like you made up your mind at certain times for certain reasons, and then your worldview started shifting, right? Because it's every single minute that we're alive, we always have the opportunity to start changing our life to the direction we want our goals to show us, right? Like, so it's not about what goal you have as much as it is about what you're doing for that goal. Like, it's obviously you need to have your goal. You need to know what direction. It's like a compass, right?
Right.
So as you said, you're definitely your normal guy. You're a spectacular guy, but you're a normal guy, right? We all are in our own light. When a subject comes up we're proficient at, we typically start to shine, right? Like that thing about us makes us stand out. And it's where, like you said, like recognizing your greatness. How often do you get to occupy that space where you stand out? And that's where you're falling into your strength, right?
Right.
Drawback out of being in your strength for too long is it can build a feigned sense of confidence in other areas, and also areas that you'll chastise yourself for not being as proficient in it, because you're like, you know what, I'm great at motivating people and talking to them, and then you look at your finances and you're like, ah, shit, I don't want to look at that, or your interpersonal relationships, and you're like, you may not be able to have a long-standing, meaningful relationship that really makes you feel the fruit of life in that subject.
Right.
More of, well, I can motivate people, but why can't I get those relationships to work? So those are some of the consequences of over leveraging our strength, because we become more naked in our weakness but we're ashamed of it, right? So, you know, the whole Adam and Eve concept, right? Cover it up, you're ashamed, you
Yeah.
know?
It look
So
bad.
what's that? Uh,
It
so
can't look bad.
I'm sorry, we may have a little bit of a delay there. What was that?
I said we can't look bad. We can't look.
Yeah, well, but if we choose to look back, we don't want to relive things to the point that it changes our future because we can't get out of the past. But
Right.
more of, if we do look back, it's more of what can I learn? Because I like to do an exercise with myself and also with my clients and customers and things. I like to do this exercise where I know what you've gone through. And again, I'm not a psychologist, and I have no interest in becoming a psychologist at this stage of my life, but I love psychology and I love to be able to understand the way that people work. So with that, you know, and I study it, I've gone to school for it. I just didn't complete yet. So, but I have continuously educated myself beyond, and then having conversations like these, not just the recorded type, but there was such a demand in the people that I was talking to in my personal life and even in my professional life. They're like, why aren't you doing this in a way that we could listen to it? And I'm like, I finally bought into that pressure that was being given. Like, do it, Chad, do it. And it's been more than 5 years that I've had people really pushing that since this type of medium has become more popular. So to kind of back off of that subject a little bit, I'm more curious about, like, so you had certain stages where you made up your mind about certain things, right? So you realize at a much younger age, because anytime we talk about our past, we're really talking about our younger self, right?
Right.
If it's our lifetime we're talking about. So people are like, this is a picture when I was younger. Or like, well, unless you got a time machine, that's a picture when you were younger, technically. You know, so you said 8th grade. Something occurred and kind of made you look at yourself for like suffocating who you really are. Right?
Yeah,
Like greatness, right?
actually, yeah, when I was in 8th grade, so I had went from like 6th, 7th grade. I was very outgoing, all that stuff. And as soon as I hit 8th grade, I went to a new school. So I went to a new school, right? My first day, and I was in sports. I was like, people knew me because I played sports, and I was like one of the best athletes in the area and all that stuff. And like my first day of school, I saw my friend. His name's Andy, and I said, "What's up?" Something like that. I was a little kid. I was happy. I was like, "Yeah, I see somebody I know," and I think he was with other people, and he just looked at me and then kind of like just walked away. And in that moment, I made a decision that I'm not worth it, or something along that, or I'm really not special. You know what I'm saying? And from there on, I started to I was a lot more introverted. I kind of started to like sit back and look, and I was very timid on things. It's crazy how one instance can change everything. So I just made that decision. I'm not worth it. And I started to sit back and kind of like, I wouldn't put myself out there and all that stuff. And from like 9th to 12th grade is when I would say around 11th grade, I started to get more. My life was going on. I was like, soccer universities were looking at me and stuff like that. So I had a lot going on, I guess you could say. And it was like, I had status, right? And I started to become more extroverted. And yeah, from then on, and then like when I got into college, I started to just really grow into myself, I guess you could say. But it was really funny because 8th grade, I made that decision, and I still have little moments, not even little, sometimes are a whole day of just introversion, of just like, why am I feeling this way? You know what I'm saying? It's like, why am I feeling this way? Oh, you know, I remember that time I made that choice when I was younger, and then, okay, like, let's get out of this state. What can I do? Blah, 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 all that stuff. But it's just funny how these little things that happen in our past, like when
Yeah.
we were so young, it projects us into a whole, you know, a whole life.
Yeah.
So
You know,
from there on it was like in college I grew into myself and I started to really, you know, develop myself, and then after I went to college, but I didn't graduate. I graduated partying, you know.
yeah. Yeah. Which is most people get their secondary or their undergrad in it.
Yeah, so I graduated partying, man. I was like a crazy partier.
Yeah.
And then from there I took on you know, from there on I became a realtor, and I took on a lot of different entrepreneurial spaces from there on, and that was kind of my projection. I joined this thing, the self-development thing, self-development course at 22. It's called Landmark.
Okay.
You're aware of it, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So you did the forum.
Yeah. So I did that, and I was just I was just a self-development. I don't want to even say a junkie, because I was really like I always looked at people that were, I guess I looked down upon people that were junkies. You know what I'm saying? Like, they talked a good game, but they didn't have the life to back it up.
Right. They were addicted to the idea.
They're addicted to the idea.
Yeah. And
So,
it's not hard to become addicted to an idea. Right. It's where like we don't put enough behind the effort, but the idea creates a certain sense of reward for us, either to the way that once we say it, we're like, I'm working on me, you know, and then that's the convincing to other people, I'm working on me.
yeah,
And it sounds good to them. They're like, you know what? It almost creates like an untouchable value or a force field of like, so if the person makes mistakes, it's like they're working on themselves. They made a declaration, but they
yeah,
may be using that like a crutch.
yes,
Like you said, like the junkie scenario in that is you'll get, I talked to my last professor about this too. He's a motivational speaker. He teaches psychology. He's a he's a fantastic man. He's a fascinating human being. Um, and he brought up during one of our lectures, he brought up the fact that in psychology does not look at motivational speakers as being successful. And the
yeah,
reason why that is the marked value of success of the participants in real world change. And it's actually less than 5%. I believe he said it was 3% of the individuals that participate in well-organized motivational speakers systems and or self-development courses
really,
don't really succeed well because they don't have enough of the structural stability to get them where they want to go. It's
yeah,
kind of like trying to learn how to ride your bike, but you haven't even tied your shoes yet. You
right,
know, you haven't even learned to fully walk, and now you're all of a sudden on your bike. You know, it's like you skip too many steps.
yeah,
So what I proposed in that conversation with this professor of mine, I said, well, I feel that the thing that's missing is scaffolding. And I brought this up in other episodes as well on the show. And are you familiar with that term, Mike?
no, I'm not.
Oh, by the way, do you prefer Mike or Michael?
You can call me Mike.
Okay. So scaffolding it's exactly like what they do in scaffoldings whenever they're doing construction. They'll put scaffolding around something to either do restoration or build up for support of some sort, right? Whether it's aesthetic or structural, it's still a support system put around something. So
Yeah,
what that is in psychology, they use scaffolding as a treatment method for people to help build up areas in their life that stabilize them. But what they do is they'll actually develop, they'll put something in place that takes care of that need with the individual. So a lot of times in psychology, they're not going into people's finances and stuff like that. They're giving them the distinctions in thinking that helps them understand with clarity how to be successful there. Then they start pulling that method away and let
yeah,
the person stand on their own. So if you can imagine like building all the way around you in the 8 different areas of maturity that I work with, one of those, or whichever one of those areas you're deficient in, I build it up with you and then start to remove myself as you become stable in that area. And now it's all you. Once I'm gone, that's all yours. And you know how to successfully hold it. Now it's a matter of building up the habit that helps support long-term, not short-term. So that's what they say motivational speakers aren't as successful, because they don't offer that. That's like the next course you buy into. But it's usually, it's advancing with a disability. So it's intentionally advancing somebody forward with a disability. Now, I am familiar with Landmark. I've gone through some of the courses as well. So I'm a graduate, as they refer to us in there. They inspired you to look at different places and then encouraged you to do work. And the scaffolding method that they used was where they would push you into being authentic.
Yeah.
Be authentic, be honest, be sincere.
Yeah.
Connect with that person. And then the piece that they did use that was, it supported the company and the mission to get you to recruit people in so that they could also start seeing the world the way that you do, that you've helped learn how to view the world to the mechanical way of looking at the world, not necessarily all of it because you have your unique traits.
Yeah.
To bring them in because now they can themselves start to learn the way that you did.
Right.
And then continuing to grow the mission.
Right.
It was a two-sided benefit, but that was one of the biggest gripes that I heard with, Landmark, was this constant recruitment method. And like the reason why they're doing this is because they don't have a lot of ways to make you put this stuff in your life. And this is the best way they know how on a uniform platform to get people to understand how to do the stuff in their life is doing the best at that also benefits them, which is more recruitment. So anyway, I've gone on a bit about the self-development and all of that. I know exactly what you mean in the sense that, and the overall idea of what you're talking about when it comes to the self-development. I've been an addict of that stuff for a while myself. And what I mean by addict is not the junky concept of it being like, I just want to learn it, so it's another nice thing to say. It's more of trying to dissect my life with that information and figure out how that information can help me build my life up to a better place or closer to my goals. So that's where I'm at with it, but I've been like this my entire life. So it's kind of like always undoing some work that you did before to figure out where you could critique it enough to make it more effective or potent.
Right. Exactly.
So I've went on a little bit of a diatribe there, but so they can kind of
That's cool.
Extraction, right? A little bit more from you.
You're explaining it well. You're explaining it well to the audience. You're giving a great description of how, so they can relate. Maybe if they don't understand, I got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So then after that, it was, I mean, I did self-development for a very long time, and I started companies and businesses and different ventures for, a while. And I would say the best self-development that you can have is starting a business, because you literally it literally is all on you. So you have to generate every day when you don't want to. And not to say that you don't have to with the job, like you do have to push yourself. But with a business, like you have to generate yourself on the weekends. If something bad happens, you got to make sure you go and make a call, and, you might lose money here. There's just a lot of risk there. So there's a certain amount of stress that comes with it that I like. And also too, I've had to grow through it because life is always happening too at the same time. Like we're trying to create, at the same time, we're trying to create, romantic relationships. We're trying not to yell at our family members, you know what I'm saying? So we're always trying to do all these things. And then on top of that, the strenuous thing is build this business,
Yeah.
And, it's just been such a remarkable experience. I mean, it's definitely been painful, but it's well worth it. I mean, really, the best thing I got from all of that is just being able to handle things and grit of the stress of life. And, and I actually had a panic attack like 2 years ago. And I mean, I won't go too far into it, but I had a major panic attack, and I had to get what's it called? Hypnotherapy.
Mm.
I got hypnotherapy 2 years ago, and that changed my life. I still use the techniques till today, but it's just like, the mix between the hypnotherapy and meditation really changed my life on managing stress. Before it was like I was just like powering through things, and I would manage stress in a certain way. But now there's like, now what I'm learning is like there's an art to managing stress.
Mm.
And sometimes we don't give ourselves enough comfort. Sometimes, sometimes we need to just breathe, and I had a really, really good mentor of mine. He said, stress is good. Stress is really good. And I remember on the phone one time, he was like, man, I'm just stressed out. I had a Gary Bishop, actually.
Yeah.
Gary Bishop.
Yeah. Familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a call with him one time, and I was like, man, I'm just like all over the place here, man. Like, I'm just so stressed. And he goes, I love it when you're stressed out. And I was like, this fucking guy, it made me laugh at it because I was
added his Scottish accent.
Yeah, and the Scottish accent. And it made me just laugh at it and just not take it so serious, and yeah, I mean, it was just that, like, my coaching with him really helped me become somebody that like can really generate money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we worked together like 4 years ago, but he helped me really put in like habits and focus on things that work the most and work the best. And he really, the distinctions coaching with him. So I had a 1 hour coaching call with him every single week for 9 months. So it was intense. Like, one time he made me cry, like straight up, just like made me cry. And like, it takes a lot for me to cry.
Yeah.
But it like almost in a way to, like, a really good coach, like a really good hard coach that like told me what's up and kind of just took the what do they call it, the veil
Uh-huh.
the veil out of my
Yeah.
eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, just took it, and like I just saw it, and it was crazy. It was really that kind of coaching has always worked for me, just having like a coach that kind of like tough love, but like, I don't know, like can connect at the same time.
Yeah.
You know
what I find that it's, to touch on a couple of points that you've made too, is so you consistently refining your watermark, the high mark, right? And you were pushing it up and making it, it's like, that's where a lot of that stress was coming from in the business concept, constantly pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And it was raising the bar of, so we can say integrity, but it's your integrity to your goal. And you kept raising the bar, and you felt that I've got to do this in order to make it right. I've got to do this in order to progress.
Yeah.
The thing that, because I also worked with Gary as well, and he was one of my coaches as well throughout some of the seminars between major trainings, and so when you say like, yeah, you had a 1 hour call with him on a weekly basis, it was similar for me. And telling me the dinosaur tale, it's like, it's, you're going through life like this, and you're like, I'm making all these changes and all of this, and then it's like, but there's this 50-foot dinosaur tail following you, and you're just knocking everything over as you're trying to like straighten your life up, and stuff like that. So it was really I value everything that I did with him as well. Yeah. That's also a marked thing about human beings, and specifically ones that want to experience something grand in life or something extraordinary in life is that they usually do find mentors. They usually do find people that are up to something. You know, most of the time when you hear somebody's up to something is they make a statement as if that's a negative. They're up to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am up to something.
Exactly.
And so are you. And so are everybody I've had on chat with Chad. We're all up to something, right? But it's not the mischievous up to something. It's the developmentally and creative up to something. I'm up to my goal. I'm up to life. So I've applied the same thing in my dating life. I don't like to, and I don't prefer to date inside of like with anyone that is not up to something. So, you know, because do you imagine like how that could be a drain if the person, your partner, is not up to something, right? So anyway, I'm not going to continue to belabor everybody with that one topic and statement, but the next part of what I wanted to get to is like when you were called out and the veil was removed so that you can see the reality of what was beyond your comfort zone. That veil is the veil of comfort zone. So when you were feeling like I'm stressed out and you heard, I love it when you're stressed out. Who hears something like that and thinks desirable? Most of the time you think undesirable. It's like this person's a psychopath. They're not. They just know that people being overly polite or overly comforting and accommodating can become a problem for your growth because it coddles you into a safety position. It coddles you into minimizing your greatness or minimizing the reality of what you can do because it's easier to feel comfortable. And that's one step closer to victimhood.
Yeah.
And once you fall into victimhood, whoever convinces you you're a victim now has control over you.
Right.
So it's like you have to be cautious of that because that can be a very dangerous place to be because somebody else just become a serf to somebody through pleasantries, through caring, right?
Yeah.
So, so as far as that is that stress is a direct connected indicator that you're out of your comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want the world to be different and you want to experience something, you have to adapt to that stress value to the point that it's no longer stressing you.
Yeah.
Or it has less stress to you that it could get to the point that it's undetected because you've adapted. And that's the whole thing. The human species is a master of adaptation. We seem to create the greatest challenges whenever we get isolated and become an expert in one area because that's where we become inept in others.
Yeah.
So, all right, get off my soapbox here for you. And there's some historical values I want to go through as well, because what I find is a great disservice to human beings is whenever we take away or create some sort of gift in another. So whenever as soon as I make you gifted, I am unable to achieve that.
Right.
Unless I already have enough similarities that makes me go, I can do what he did. But most of the time, like whenever somebody says, you know, like for me, I get the conviction of being really intelligent, right? Like people are like, Chad, you're so smart. I always disrupt that statement with, I'm more curious than I am smart. Because what people do is they like to qualify intelligence as if it is external of themselves.
Yeah.
Not everybody exclusively, right? Exclusive statement. It's more of people like to think that if you're really smart, you're not going, like, I can't be as smart as you because you're gifted in being intelligent.
Yes.
And that's not true. Not for me anyway. I'm interested, but genuinely interested enough to be present when somebody's talking to me and I can learn from them. So that's what I get. So whenever I see that, that's why I want to try to touch back on a historical value so that we have not this special guy, Michael, that's, 30 sitting in front of us. We have the decisions that were made at a certain time. So like at 8th grade, right? You see a friend, you're at a strange school and you're like, hey, and they didn't really give you the same level of, oh, it's you.
Yeah.
They were kind of dismissive of you and made you question your own value.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's interesting. That's interesting. I just want to touch on the smart thing really quick.
Yeah, please.
Because what you said was so pivotal. Actually, later, like probably around 27 years old, uh, actually, hold on. When me and Gary started coaching, it's funny you bring up being smart. One of the stories that I had was, I'm not smart. That's why I can't go to, that's why I didn't finish school. That's why I didn't do all this, blah, blah, blah. And we, through our training together, we really dissected that. And what I got from the whole thing is, okay, if I'm not smart, then how can I if I'm really not smart, how can I create these businesses, create cash flow, and get these results that not many people have? So what I'm trying to say is that we measure ourselves compared to like what's standard smart. Like, are you standardly smart with book knowledge? Are you standardly smart with going to school and blah, blah, blah? But it's really like, how do you, like, we're all smart in our own ways. We all got a gift of something, connecting, even though maybe hustling. Maybe you're good at like reading something and summarizing it and, giving a speech on it. Like, everybody has their own way of being smart. And we just kind of have to dial in and not look at like Chad. Chad's so intelligent. Man, the guy is so intelligent. Like, he could talk about anything for hours. But we don't have to compare ourselves, because we are also smart in our own way. And we're already enough. And this, I've been really getting to this place lately. It's like, create value. No, I already am valuable. You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
By the way, that's the argument of perfect to perfection.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I'm not perfect and all of this. And like, what people are saying, what you just said is, you just said, I am perfect.
Right.
But I'm not perfection.
Right.
There's always some place to go.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic concept, right? It's what I'm always reminded of whenever people are like putting somebody is really smart on the table, or putting a label on somebody and saying that is, and by what metrics is that individual measured to be intelligent? Because we do have a habit of liking the idea that somebody's smart, but not necessarily understanding the full spectrum of their level of insight, right? And the ability to process information and to problem solve and create their solutions to things. The concept that we look for in wisdom over knowledge, it's like knowledge helps build up to wisdom. So as wisdom is the ability to use knowledge and offset an outcome in the future.
Right.
Versus I just know what's going on. It's a transitional thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing that I've loved to talk to people about. Like, Michael's perfect, but you have your goals that move you into a direction. So you have the option to go freely toward your direction, or you can go like a surf towards your direction, towards the goal. But when you go like a surf towards your goal, a slave to your goal, it's usually not your goal. Somebody else gave you the goal, and now you think that's what's going to validate you. That's the idea of perfection. Perfection is an infection. Somebody else gave it to you.
Yeah.
Perfect is what you are, because it's what you've created up to this point through all the lessons that you've had, all the decisions that you've made, and your genetic hand, right? Timing is something that it gets a little too much credit at times, and reduces the other values necessary to be successful, right? Like, it could be the right time for you, but you don't have the skill sets to be identified for the opportunity.
Right.
Whether you don't identify it yourself or whoever's presenting the opportunity. Absolutely. Or whatever the environment is that you haven't lived up to the skills necessary in order to be successful there.
Yes.
So timing gets too much credit at times.
Yes.
And then people are like, oh, it's luck. The only value in luck that I ever perceive is time. Everything else is going to be my dealing, right? So maybe I'm at the elementary level of my development here, but in 10 years, I'm going to be at more of an advanced level where if the time showed up again, I would be the ideal person.
Right.
Versus going, they're lucky. And then there's this facade of lucky that falls onto that person. And then it takes away my ability to achieve that too, other than play the lottery. And it takes away your structural development. Or it reduces the likelihood you know how to take the steps to get there. So, sorry, my notification was supposed to be silenced there.
Oh, no worries.
So something that I'd like to get to, and I'll use two pieces that you've talked about.
Sure.
And then to see about kind of bringing the young Michael out of this, right? So that people can get more related to you and realize that you're just a human being doing a human being thing, right? You're being human being, right? It sounds some interesting semantics, but there's reasons for framing things in such a way, right? So two things. My father always realized that I could be an amazing employee, but I'd be a better entrepreneur. He recognized this, and he recognized it as a very young age. I was in middle school, earlier part of middle school.
Yeah.
I obviously was paying attention to my studies and all of that but I noticed that kids really like to kind of come up and bum candy off me, right? Like, hey man, can I get a piece of gum? Or can I get, you got one of those suckers or whatever, right? Can I get one of those? And I'm like, at that age, I'm like, yeah, sure. But I'm like, something's missing here.
Yeah.
Like whenever they come up and ask me, by the end of the day, my pockets were empty, right? Like the candy was gone. The kids knew who they needed to go to get their gum, the Big Red, because that was big back then, right?
Yeah.
Juicy fruit wasn't all that great, but at that stage, that was a little bit before me. So here I am. I've got empty pockets at the end of the day. I wanted a piece of gum 2 to 3 hours earlier than that, and I'm like, damn it. I didn't want to have bad breath. I was really self-conscious about a lot of stuff because I was coming into the age of reason, right? That was a lot of the kids' issues. They don't want to have bad breath. But how long does Big Red last, right? Like it still goes on after you lose the taste value because it kind of saturates the taste buds over like a short period of time, and it still has the peppermint, or not the peppermint, the cinnamon scent for a while. But we got really self-conscious, like I can't taste anymore, get rid of it, I need a piece, right? Like peppermint, stuff like that. So I recognized at that point, there's something that I can do that helps keep it in my pocket by the end of the day, so I still have my options, as well as ensuring that the other kids around me had the opportunities as well. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I took $1, and there was a gas station down the road from my house. It was about a 2-mile walk. Now, it was called Deschamps. Now, so we went up to this gas station, and they had the 1-cent piece of bubble gum. So penny gum, right? I got 100 pieces of it. My mom had this bright red fanny pack. So I'm like, Mom, can I use the fanny pack? She's like, why? And I'm like, I just want to use it for school to help carry stuff. I got my book bag, but I want to be able to carry this too. She's like, all right, whatever. A little weird, like this young boy wearing this very bright red, it's like lipstick red fanny pack. They looked like it was leather, to top it all off. And this is back whenever fanny packs were becoming big. Like it's like it just hit everybody like as a wave. Everybody's like walking around goofy, socks up to their knees, and they got the fanny pack on. It's the thing that a lot of people get made fun of for now. So I bring this thing to school with me with 100 pieces of that gum with me. And then the kid comes up and he goes, hey, can I have a piece of gum, man? I was like, yeah, 10 cents. He's like, what? I said, yeah, you can have a piece of gum, it's 10 cents. He goes, come on, man. Can you just give me a piece? I'm like, no, it's 10 cents.
Yeah.
So he goes, he gets 10 cents. He comes back. I give him a piece of this penny bubble gum. He's over there chewing it. He's happy. I'm happy. I had to break the pattern that they became dependent on. And the next thing you know, within 2 weeks, I'm at Sam's Club with my dad and my brothers. And I've got a wad of cash in my pocket. And I'm shopping the Now or Later drums, right? The paint cans of sour candies and like all these things. I'm like, back then you could get like warheads and stuff like that in a paint can.
Yeah.
So like I'm looking at all of this stuff. It's like $20 for this, $20 for that. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I've got several of these things I put into the cart. And my dad's like, I'm not buying that. I goes, I am. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm buying it. And he's like, oh, okay, where'd you get the money? I'm like, I earned it.
Yeah.
So he was a good parent. He's like, how'd you do it? I was like, well, you know, kids are buying gum and candy from me at school. My dad's like,
That's
oh, okay.
good. That's pretty cool that you like figured that out like at such a young age. Like you really, because you know when I was in school, we had two different experiences. I was just worried about surviving. I wasn't worried about making money.
Yeah.
So that's funny though that like, but that makes sense though that that would happen because like eventually, yeah, eventually it's like, man, I want gum. I want
Yeah.
my own gum, you know?
Yes.
So
Supply and demand.
supply and demand right there.
Well,
Boom.
here's the funny thing. I was already in conversations with other kids to franchise. I had, and I'm not kidding, Michael, I had
Yeah.
no idea what franchising was, but
Yeah.
I realized that if I was like, look, I'm going to give you a fanny pack and I'm going to give you the candy to put in it. You just have to pay for those things and I'll re-up you. You know, so don't worry about getting you wherever you're going, all that. I'm going to sell it to you cheaper and you can make a profit. And I'm like, this is the pricing that I'm using. You keep the same pricing. The demand is here. Let's go do it. You know, so I was already in that conversation. And while I was finalizing 2 other kids to work with me on this, the principal came and asked for me out of the class. It was the same day. I was ready to take action because I was building up this surplus of cash. I was ready. I was going to buy another or 2 more fanny packs. I was going to get. I was still buying candy. I had a bunch of candy waiting at home, right? Gum, candy, all that stuff. So yeah, it got to the point like I had it laid out like it was $1 for one of the a sucker, which they get a big old thing like 50 of them for $20. I'm like, why wouldn't I? Now I didn't really sell as much of those because I kind of didn't want to, because it's still I had like 10 cents for a piece of gum that cost me a penny. Yeah, a little more profit than that, right? So I'm like, I get everything set up and I'm ready, right? I'm ready. I'm going to go that weekend and I'm going to buy 2 more fanny packs. And we were going to go to Sam's Club. So I was going to get those there as well as more candy. And the next thing I know, the principal comes and asks for me out of the classroom. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. As far as I know, everything's good in the world. And I'm like, what's the principal want?
Yeah.
I go in, he's like, all right, well, come with me. And we go to his office.
That's
He's not talking to me about what's going on. We go to his office. He sits me down and he goes, Chad, I've heard you've been selling candy in school. And I'm like, is the principal went in on this action or what? And he goes, you really can't do that while you're here. And I was like, well, why?
Yeah, right.
Know any better, you know, like why? And he's like, well, we need you to focus on your schoolwork while you're here and not be distracted. I'm like, I'm doing my schoolwork. He goes, well, we have vending machines that sell, you know, things to the kids, the soda and the snacks. And I'm like, well, I felt like I immediately got shoved out of my own business.
That's so funny. Dude, that is hilarious, bro.
Then I went home and I was ready to bitch. You know, I'm like this little kid. I'm like mom and dad, you know, I'm like, man, this is so messed up. Can you believe this happened? It's like, I don't understand it. I didn't see that I was doing anything wrong. And my dad goes, well, I mean, if they don't want you to do it in school, you can't do it in school anymore. I'm like, but dad, he goes, if you get kicked out of school, you're going to have a whole lot more problems. I'm like, all right, squashed it. I didn't do it again after that because when my dad had that tone, I knew there was some problems on their way. So, yeah.
That's so cool. No, because I could imagine it's like this gum was your world. You know what I'm saying? It was like your bread and butter. It was like you were creating with other schools. That's pretty funny though. Like you saw the demand. There's demand here.
Yeah.
Like let's do it at these other schools. That's brilliant. Yeah, that is funny. But yeah, and then all of a sudden the principal just shuts down the whole operation.
Yep. That was my first business. And it was like the government came in. It's like, no, you can't do that here anymore.
Exactly.
I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, this rule's not allowed anymore. This is actually illegal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I wasn't able to pivot because I had no idea how to pivot. And I didn't know that was a thing. Because literally, I did not know what a franchise was at that time. But I'd already set up franchises ready to be executed. So didn't have any idea. It's like, there's so many kids that want. I'm only able to get to so many kids. Like, we don't need this to be a distraction. It kind of wasn't a distraction, you know, it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So that was my very first business. So in my lifetime, I've had 4. That was my first, and it was an accident. I just saw the demand, and I'm like, yeah, what the hell, I'll make it. So yeah. So then there was the next one after that was a year long. It was a handyman service with one of my childhood friends. And then there was the personal training. It was a holistic personal training company that I started in 2009 and stopped in 2015. So that one had 6 years. And then there was working as an insurance agent it was just a little over a year. So 4 different businesses and just learning and exploring, because you fail into success.
Yeah.
You don't win into success with a lottery. You know, very few people ever do that. It's you fail forward and you learn from everything. That's what I love about it. But so that was my childhood experience. Now, the other thing that you'd mentioned is you had a panic attack. So when I got into, it was latter part of middle school and then almost through the entire portion of high school, I had social anxiety that was so crippling that I did have panic attacks, and it was horrible. If you haven't had them,
Panic attacks aren't a joke, dude. Panic attacks, you literally feel like you're about to die.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I mean, I bet you there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this that really can relate to the panic attack, but it's so, and I'm sorry to pause, but let me just say this really quick.
Yeah.
With the panic attack is like, you're trying to come up with a solution in your head, and for every solution you have a way of that solution not to work. So then it just becomes like, you know, just a hill of doubts. And you know, just what I've learned through hypnotherapy, and just doing that, like that was instrumental for me. But also, like, even when I meditate now, sometimes I'm just like, we're always looking for a solution, always. And it's almost the pursuit of the solution is the problem.
Yeah.
That's the actual problem. It's like, no, we just actually should just breathe, like just focus on breathing. And that's like bar none. The hypnotherapy has helped me with the stress management, but also just like coming into that pattern shift of like, okay, I'm looking for an answer right now, and I'm actually finding really good solutions, but no matter what, I'm coming up with a way that it won't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's building anxiety in my body, and I can feel it, and my chest is tight and all this stuff. But just saying like, okay, like just interrupting that pattern, like, okay, just breathe. Don't look for the answer. You'll naturally find it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I really get. Like, as of recently, what I've been doing recently is a lot of breath work and hypnotherapy as well. And just like not like trying to find that solution is almost the solution.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like not trying to solve this complex problem, or just saying like, okay, this is going to work out somehow. Like even for this interview, like, or whatever you want to call this conversation, it was like, first I was like, what am I going to talk about? And then it was like, all right, just calm down. Just let it go. And at that point, when I was thinking about it, I was in doing business stuff too. So my stress levels were a little high anyways. So I was just like, you know, whatever, it's just going to work out. And I literally just started to breathe, and it was just, I forgot about it. And then like later on, cause we do this, we talked yesterday, right? Yeah, it was yesterday. And then later on, it was like, it was like I was just bringing myself through being I was just present the whole day. And then the thought would come up and it'd be like, oh yeah, no, I'm just gonna share myself. I'm just gonna share about what's happening. Like, it doesn't have to be spectacular. I don't have to be like the man. I don't have to do that. You know, like I don't have to do that facade because that's not real. And I don't even want to be that. You know, I've tried that before. That's it's not fulfilling.
I'll add to it too. I'll add to that is that it's the fear of not being good enough.
Yes.
And what it is for me is like, I had to overcome that. This has been more than 5 years now in the making that I've been working on, not just this channel, but my other channel. And just getting it out there, because it's always afraid that I'm going to be criticized. I'm always like, and it's going to happen. But I was like, okay, well, I'll do it whenever I've become an expert, or when I get my degree, or whenever, whatever. And we have a habit, especially in our country, to be focused on the successful, but then omit what it took for them to become successful. Everybody wants to talk about Bill Gates' money that he made now, but how many people are bringing it back to 1984, Bill Gates? You know, Steve Jobs, but at the end of his life, was the height of his life. They'll talk about the few times that he had these major setbacks as if they're the chapters worthy of reading, but nothing else is worthy about reading of his life. And it's all a dishonest approach to the outcome, which all it is, this obsessed focus on outcome, which is you're where you are right now. And where you were yesterday, today is a success. Where you were 5 years ago, you're a success now. Where you're going to be in 5 years is a whole nother animal to where you are now. So, and what happens though is that because we like to focus where other people are successful, Michael Jordan, right? Everybody wants to focus on and fall in love with the fact that he's, you know, arguably the world's greatest basketball player. And everybody wants to focus on that. So then they're like, okay, well, what else can we focus on? Oh, I heard that he's kind of a jerk. Like, well, jerk's an interesting thing. Maybe he's not a jerk. Maybe the person that he was talking to was overly sensitive and didn't hear what he had to say. They heard what they wanted to hear him say.
Yeah.
So they get rid of the depth of practice. The man practiced when he was sick. The man did, you know, he refused to quit no matter what. So that's what most people are forgetting, and what they don't focus on. They focus on, you know, like, what was the first day that he made up his mind that he was going to play basketball? Just play it before even making up his mind he wanted to go professional. So it's the same for you. At what stage did that happen for you? You know, it's like, you are fantastic where you are because you're in the process. You're up to something. So, and that's a beautiful piece. So as far as that goes, to add that in, I really think that there's a good deal of value to take out of that for you and the listeners, is that because you're not where you want to be, there's this haunting idea that you're failing at it. You're not succeeding. Yeah. And you are succeeding even when you fail, because you're not going to stop and you're going to learn from what you did as you have done. Totally. So anyway, all right. I wanted to throw that in there.
I wanted to hear about your middle school anxiety and stuff like that.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I cut you off there.
Oh no, that's fine. What it was, so the very first panic attack I had, my mother was actually working as the school nurse at the time. And I was walking through the hallway, and I remember, so I was on my way leaving class to go see my mom. And it was between periods, so like class was in session. And I was on my way up to see my mom, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I'm on the lower floor for the 8th graders, and it's on the ground level floor. And I'm walking through, and I thought something about my younger brother, about him being bullied. And I'd already been bullied earlier that day by somebody who's like, you know, threatened to shove me in my locker and all this stuff. Right. Yeah. And I really, like, I didn't want to have the altercations, you know, but I also was the second to youngest out of 6 boys. So fighting wasn't something I was unfamiliar with. I just didn't want to break the rules. Yeah. So as I'm walking down the hallway, I've already got that emotional charge. I've got the emotional charge of somebody messing with my younger brother. Yeah. Which that was one thing as a teenager, through my youth. Like, I was allowed to beat up my younger brother, but nobody else was.
For sure. Of course. Right.
So I've got the idea that somebody might bully him like they did me. And I've got the, you know, like all of the other stuff, you know, like classwork, the rest of these things. And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, and not having as much introspection as I do as an adult, but I'm walking down the hallway and then it felt like the walls started to slide in on me. You know, almost kind of like, you know, like an avalanche coming in at me, you know, from all directions. And then my heart rate sped up. My breathing got really shallow. I started sweating almost instantaneously. I felt like I was underwater under so much pressure, the significant amount of force coming at me. Uh, and the reality was I was walking down the middle of the hallway and nobody was around me. But I had this crushing sense that I was in this doomed state. You know, everyone was going to hate me. Everyone was going to dismiss me. Nobody was going to accept me. You know, so I got to my mom and my mom could see that I was in this panic state. And she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just couldn't really explain it. I'm like, Mom, I'm just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, she had no idea what was going on. I didn't know how to explain it to anybody, you know, and then there was several years between that and the next one. Oh, it just kind of went away a little bit. I still dealt with the anxiety, but it wasn't like this climactic moment.
Yeah.
So the next time I got it was, I had switched high schools because I got rezoned because of where I lived. So I went to this other high school. And this other high school, like I was used to the high school that had, you know, the skater kids, the metal kids. We had our, you know, hip hop and, you know, like we had all of the groups, but I was the butterfly amongst the group, right? I could go to anybody. You know, it didn't matter. I could talk to any single group of people, the rednecks to, you know, the NWA kids, you know, and I mean the band, right? Because it was big back then. The skaters and the Chris Cobain kind of guys, you know, the bowl cuts and, you know, then the metal kids, the ones that are like, Metallica's going to come back, you know, it's like, you know, Deicide and Sepultura became big after, you know, like, you know, it's, so I could actually go and interact with any of them, the cheerleaders, you name it, football guys, all of them. Yeah. And so I got switched over to this other high school, which I went from Hernando High to Central High. At Central High, I only knew, I think, 3 people. One of them was one of my best friends that lived near me. And he was punk. And I absolutely admired him beyond belief on his level of self-confidence. Like I remember one time we're sitting in class to give an idea about how like restricted and restrained I was versus him. Sitting in class, the teacher said something and my buddy Chris lets out the most horrendous sounding fart in the middle of class and took complete ownership. Some girl was sitting in front of him and she looked back at him. She goes, Chris. And he's like leaning back, goes, what? And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I was embarrassed for him, you know? And he's like, I don't care. He was the anti-establishment guy, you know? But the next time that I got my panic attack was right at that same time period, not in the same moment, but in the same time period. I'm walking between classes and you've changed schools. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
So I'm surrounded by a bunch of other kids that are strangers. Yeah. And some kids, like there were kids that were making remarks at a distance about me. And as I got closer, and I'm like, oh man. And then I realized I wasn't in a safe place. Although I wanted it to be, I wasn't. So they would make these statements, and as I was getting closer, they said all kinds of just the worst shit they could possibly say to me, you know. And I realized, well, I can't go up the stairs there because those kids are waiting, so I'm gonna have to go around the long way and take the stairs to get into the cafeteria. So several times that kind of thing happened to the point where I just got another panic attack. Now this one wasn't as major as it was in middle school. At this time, I'm like, you know what? If this kid's gonna keep doing it, I'm just gonna throw down. You know, I'm just gonna do it. So, you know, the event happened in the cafeteria. The kid came over, and I'm like, if you want to go, dude, I'm ready. Let's go. You know, it's put it all down. I'm like, I'm just new here, but I'll tell you what, I'm not gonna let you push me around. Yeah. Like, just because I'm new here doesn't do that. Yeah. And he's like, you know, he tried to like, you know, swell up and, you know, all of that. And I'm like, hey, I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
Yeah.
I've got much bigger brothers that do a lot worse without a referee. So, yeah. And he kind of like it's kids got between us, but that other kid realized at that point that it wasn't going to go anywhere. He wasn't going to be able to continue to bully me. So he backed off. And obviously my character continued to grow. So the next time I actually had the panic attack, I made an agreement with my friend Chris, which is the one that I'd mentioned earlier. He was going to meet me at a mall in St. Pete. And I had to go get some Christmas gifts. It was at that time of year. So I pull up and I'm like, this cell phones, texting wasn't a thing back then. And then watching your minutes before you hit 7 p.m., or weekends were free. So I try calling Chris and he doesn't answer. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to leave. I didn't know anybody inside. Wasn't going to go in this building with a bunch of people I didn't know. So I'm sitting there and I've got the phone and I'm waiting and I'm like just about to turn the car on to drive out, and Chris calls back and he goes, hey man, I can't make it. I'm not going to be able to.
Oh shit.
And he goes, I'm here in St. Pete. I can't right now. I've got to worry. I got to work on getting a ride someplace or whatever. And I'm like, well, I'll come get you if you go, to the mall with me. He goes, nah, man, I got something else I need to do. I'm like, I was like, God, and I was like, I can't let this thing control me. I can't. I need to go in. There's Christmas gifts I need to get. I have to go in this building. So I walk in and I'm already starting to feel myself sweating. I get halfway into the mall. I'm near this, like an information kiosk. And then it's just like, all of a sudden I felt like I had tribes of all different people that are coming after me, it's like, I went back to what I experienced in middle school. But this time I actually had people around me. In middle school, there wasn't anybody around me. I was in an empty hallway. This time there's people that got their kids screaming. They got all kinds of stuff going on and they're walking by me. And I'm like I'm in a full sweat, like as if I'd just been running wind sprints for a half hour, heart racing like crazy. I could barely breathe. I didn't want to take my eyes off the floor. No, I was just absolutely distraught. Disabled. And I'm like, I need to get out of this building. So I made a beeline to get out. I don't know if I ran into people or not. All I could think of was I need to get past that. It was almost like the Olympic runner or the marathon runner, and he sees the end and he's like, everything I got, nothing else exists anymore. I wasn't running, but I was walking. I was power walking out, right? And finally, when I get outside, the sun's like, I'm engulfed in the sun, and I get the fresh air, and I'm still, I could feel my heart racing like crazy, but I could see that there's the aisle, the lane of parking that my car's in.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is absurd. I'm breaking down, right? I get to the car, my heart's still pounding like crazy, but my breathing is starting to come down a little bit. I'm no longer feeling short of breath and like,
Wow.
And then I finally, I settle down in the car, heart rate starting to get back to normal. And then as I'm sitting there in the car, I'm like, I can't live like this. I was like, I need to do something about this.
Right. So
at that point, I made up my mind sitting in the car that I was going to do something different. I wasn't going to let anxiety take me away from my life anymore. So what I did to overcome it was exposure therapy. Although I wasn't familiar with it at the time. I had no idea. I know now what it is, but then I was like, I need to do something that's going to make me have to adapt to this.
Dude, that's awesome.
So
that's so cool that you got that at such a young age where you're like, okay, I'm having some anxiety. Like, I don't even think I put words to what was happening when I was younger. But like, you actually got the distinction of, okay, this is anxiety and I need to do something about it.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool because it's like, I feel like I didn't start doing that until I was like, probably like 22, 21, 22. Like, I really didn't, like, I never was like, okay, that's anxiety. I need to do something about it. So I was just like, it's really cool as a kid that you did that.
Yeah. I wasn't comfortable, but I didn't look at it like I had a choice. Now, my parents were not political at all, but my father had some very conservative ideas, you know, and conservative structuring.
Right.
So you work hard to get what you want. And that translated into other areas of life, not just a financial or business thing, but character growth. So I've always looked at the world a little bit different than a lot of other people around me, although it never occurred to me that way, except whatever other people give me checkpoints where I'm like, you don't see it this way? And they're like, no. And I get phone calls all the time from freaking elementary all the way up until my adult life. I would get phone calls asking advice. And here I am like, you know, I'm just another kid, you know? And they're like, well, what would you do about this? And they've always been asked for that. You know, one way or another, it's relationship advice or it's something else. And I wasn't trying to tell people that they were supposed to live their life a certain way. I kept just telling them how I saw it. And then I applied the same thing to myself. So the exposure therapy that I went through was, the first step was I realized I needed to have a group of people around me that I knew in order to meet somebody new. And that was to add one person to my around me that I didn't know, and to where I didn't feel uncomfortable. So at first that person made me feel really uncomfortable. And it was because I didn't know who they were, didn't know anything about them and whether they were going to reject me.
Wow.
So, and then I was like, after we would bring like, and I got my group, not knowingly they were helping me. And like, I would actually like encourage somebody that I didn't know to come over, or they would encourage somebody, or somebody would come over I didn't know. And I had to be present with them versus scared of them. I was scared of rejection, scared of being the outsider, even though I was in my group, you know? And then it got to the point where I would like actually kind of slowly etch myself over towards another group with mine. And it was like, I noticed that my group would kind of, in order to keep the conversations going, would take a small baby step towards me. And then it was like I was moving the group without my group realizing we were moving over. And that was just so that we can get closer to other people, to it, like maybe a smaller group of people, the 2 or 3, and then I could get within their presence so that I could at least say, okay, I'm feeling slightly uncomfortable here, but I'm going to continue. And the next thing you know, it went from that to, I would have my group right there, and then I would step over to a group of people I didn't know and introduce myself. And this is when I started using humor as an acceptance tool. So I'd go over and break the ice with a joke or something humorous, you know, and then I found that I was successful with that. So I started using that a little bit more often. And then I used that as a way of, went from smaller groups into larger groups. And then I started to notice I liked it. I liked the anxiety that came with it, the adrenaline that was coming out of it.
Yeah. Right.
I started to really appreciate it. And then I pushed myself because I started getting addicted to the adrenaline and the sensation of overcoming it. And I pushed myself to other groups, and there would be like a massive group of people. I had no idea who they were. And I'm like, holy crap. I was like, my heart's beating like crazy, but I'm walking towards them.
Yeah.
And I go introduce myself, and then I'd make a bit of noise. And that's where I started to occur like a class clown. But I wasn't, but I was, right? I was using it as a way of getting to be accepted, you know? And it's like, I genuinely wanted to know these people, but I also got the collapsing value, the conflated value of meeting somebody new, but I also got the reward of the adrenaline out of it and the endorphins that came with that. So I started to become a little more inauthentic, even though I authentically wanted to know these people. I was more focused on me and what I was experiencing versus what they were. And before you know it, you know, and then I kind of started to write that over time, but that was how I overcame it. And it got to the point, like I was doing all kinds of stuff to just get the adrenaline out of it. You know, the climax was skydiving. So so I went and I did that as well. And I'm like, you know what? I have no desire to skydive again. I really don't. I mean, if it's something that shows up, but I blew my eardrum out on the way down. And if you've never done that before, it is extremely painful. And that was enough. It was like 2 weeks worth of my ear hurts like hell for me to go, nah, I'm good. The sensation of the rush was nowhere near the punishment. On the balance sheet of it. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Not doing that again.
Yeah.
No, that's funny that you say that, because as soon as I did the forum, I started to realize certain voices, you know, what is it called? The voice in your head, the monkey mind, right?
Yeah.
but I started to realize that, and I started to do what you're talking about, like incremental things that would like, actually, you know, after the forum, it was like, first it was, oh, I'm ready to talk to people. Actually, it was more like, let's go. And then it turned into like, oh, I'm ready to talk to way more girls now. So then it was like what you said. It was like, even with girls, it was like the adrenaline rush was why I did it, to be honest. Was like, there was like an adrenaline. Oh, there's this cute girl right here. Let me go talk to her. But I have a little sensations in my body, and but if this works out, you know, something good might happen. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I also applied that to, that's the reason why I got into entrepreneurship. I was a door-to-door salesman.
Ooh.
And I legit did it because of the rush. Legit. Like, it wasn't even about the money for me. Like, it was about the rush. It was like about just, and we were talking about this earlier, but the mind, like expanding the mind. My mind was expanding so much just by knocking on the door and having to create rapport, and then having to, you know, get a sale. You know what I'm saying? And just doing that, like, just taught me so many things in my, like, but it started out like incremental, just like you were saying, like, oh, like that wasn't that bad. And then it was like, oh, that was a successful, I had a great conversation with that lady. And then it turned into like, man, this is just fun just for adrenaline. Like, this gets me up. This is like really legit. And like, man, I tell you what, a lot of people here know me in St. Pete for being a door knocker, because I was legit like the spokesman for door knocking. Like, I love door knocking so much. And I mean, just thinking about it makes me want to go back. Right, like now I'm like behind the computer a lot, but like just just hitting the door and just talking to people like that, getting over that anxiety that you're talking about was so addicting.
Mm-hmm.
And it became addicting over, years, like you're saying, so, and I still do little things like that. Like, like just with like, how do I say this? Oh, like sometimes I'll do like, oh, I want to meet 2 people new a day.
Yeah.
And just like when I'm out or when I'm doing stuff, and I'll just make that a goal. It's just like, just say hi, just do something, right?
Yeah.
And it works though. It legit works, but you can't say like, oh, I'm going to meet 100 people tomorrow. Like, it's easier to say, okay, like you were saying, how you stepped into, like, you just were making one step. You felt a little bit uncomfortable, but you got more comfortable with it eventually. But you know what I'm saying? So it's like the incremental really works. And they actually prove that with habits. You can't go from 0 to 100 and be up, and you can't do that with creating a habit and creating a lifestyle. You can't go 0 to 100. It has to be incremental. So your whole identity changes. Exactly like you did.
Something to add to that too is it's I call, and I refer to this as transitional stress. If you were to take the idea of going from 0 to 100 tomorrow, the other habits in your life, if they're not aligned to support it, would be a lot like, like any type of structure you're trying to move without getting the energy to move, the inertia to break in the direction you wanted at.
Right.
Like moving like, the space shuttle. Why is it that we move it so slow?
Right.
When they move it from one place to the launch pad, right? It takes a long time, and they use the mega movers to do it.
Yeah.
And those things, they're really slow. But if you were to try to go from there to the launch pad with that same setup and not have a system in place, a structural stability system in place, it would fracture things that are so detrimental that the shuttle would become unusable.
Yes.
And that's the same thing. Your goals are going to be a lot like, if you have big goals, they're going to be a lot like a shuttle. And you've got to build all of the habits that are supportive to it. Because as soon as you try to go from 0 to 100, is every habit that you've had up until the point you made up your mind to do that, are all going to be working in the direction they worked in. And it may be other directions other than the one that you're trying to go in, which
Right.
means that they create different directions of stress values that fracture your goal. And that can leave a negative emotional experience for you to make you not want to revisit it,
Yeah, exactly.
which is what happens to a lot of people,
Yeah,
especially the ones that think fated or with the idea of destiny.
right.
It wasn't my thing. It wasn't my calling. And it's like, was it not your calling, or was it that you weren't ready to take it on at this stage because you haven't built enough support systems to be successful?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, it's the same thing as, so as far as the goal that you have, and like you said, from 0 to 100, that's more of that, the structural understanding to why you can't do that is every little thing, everything from down to the way that you make your bed in the morning when you get up.
Mm.
Because if you're not ready to apply that kind of organization in your life, you may have premature success, which gives you a taste of the money or a taste of the power, but you don't have the sustainability element.
Oh yeah.
Like football players go through this all the time, professional football players. They go from whatever background and financial abilities and power and celebrity and persuasion that they have, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're there. And it has such a significant gap between where they started and where they are, that a lot of them, once that they've lost their um, their contract, they have felt and tasted success, but they don't have anything else around them that's helping them stay there or give them an equal amount of stress. So they're more likely to hit such depths of depression that suicide is one of the things that that people are concerned with about them around their life, or very, very high level behaviors that are destructive. It doesn't have to necessarily be suicide, but it could be other ones. So because they skip too much and they had somebody else scaffold, but not intentionally try to let them stay there. It's like use them as an instrument for the success, because their success was their success, but they had the stay power because they're not the celebrity, they're not the athlete. They're the owners of the athletes, or they're the, somebody's involved with the team that's not on a performance level like they are on the field. No, they have a different type of performance metrics.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. You're saying not having that structural support, and that could be like many different things. I mean, it could be like just being used to doing something. When you're used to habit, you're used to doing it. That's a sort of a structure where you have people in your life that could be another structure. So you're saying when that guy, let's say NFL players, they don't, let's say they lose their contract and now they're nobody, right? Nobody. And now they're like, what do I do? They don't have all their NFL buddies around, maybe stroking their egos and stuff like that. So, and then they turn to, destructive habits.
Whatever those are, they could have an injury that takes them out. They could play the remainder of their contract, but have a broken body, the one that is an excruciating pain. There's all kinds of things that come out of that because a lot of them are not met with professionals that are able to help them build the sustainability in their life. It's a lot like also a lot of rappers, they get fame and they get fame so quickly. As soon as they hit, it's like a hot iron, it gets struck. But the thing is not all of them turn into a Beyonce. Not all of them turn into, what's that?
Ray Lewis.
Yeah. There's, I'm trying to think of the other one.
Oh, you're talking about rappers. I got you.
Yeah.
Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne, actually, I think he's far smarter than most people give him credit.
Well, yeah, because he went to college too. So.
Yeah, and even then,
Georgia University, something like that.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot more intelligence than people even that know they're going to college. He's just such a, but he's the reason why people don't give him as much credit. If you listen to what he says, you can see that they're his ideas. They're not rehearsed. Right. So first off, that it's not a speechwriter coming out and giving him a sense of credit, right? There's
absolutely.
It's just the way that he talks about circumstances and situations and things like that. It's like, this guy is not just street smart. He's smart overall. There's other people that are like that. Jay-Z is another one, quite arguably the most wealthy person in all of rap history. Oh, because he learned to diversify himself and he didn't get caught up in the music game as much as he did learning everything around him. You
Yeah.
know? So it's things like that that are just fascinating. You continue to diversify yourself. But that is the structures for success is you look at the different elements necessary to be successful. And that's what I was talking about earlier with Michael Jordan and other people that we look at for where they are when they're successful. Bill Gates is the other example. People don't think about, like imagine doing 12 to 14 hours, maybe even 16 hours a day of practicing your craft every day, 7 days a week for years on end. How many people have that kind of discipline to do it? But yet they'll sit back and be like, one day I'm going to be a Kobe, or whomever. We don't really look at all of that. We more or less look at the fruit of their labor without looking at their labor.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, they're gifted. It's like people calling me intelligent. There's been a lot of discipline necessary in order to just understand the world the way that I do, but it's also something that my mind won't let me not do. Like it has to do it. It's the way that I'm geared, but there's habits that support it.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I know I keep going on these little diatribes and we're running out of time here, but
That's good.
yeah. So
I do want to, I know we've been really talking amazing concepts and stuff and just sharing so I actually, I really want to thank you, but also I do want to plug my mastermind and just let everybody, I want to tell everybody a little bit about it because this whole time we were talking about great content and I think this is the best, this is the content we need. I just want to plug my business and all that.
I'll contribute to it too. So yeah, please.
All right. So anyways, I have started a mastermind where I buy and sell diabetic products, over-the-counter diabetic products, and I've been doing this for about 2 years, and I've hit well past 6 figures now, and I'm doing pretty well. And now we started a mastermind, and we have about 33 people in there. So I have 2 other partners, Tito and Greg, and we're the leaders of the mastermind. And we have about half of our mastermind is making 6 figures. So, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because most masterminds that you go to, they are, 20% is making 80% of the money.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But like our mastermind, more than, and by the way, they didn't start out on 6 figures.
No.
We helped them get there. Anyways, I just want to stress that importance. If you guys want to reach out to me about starting a side income, flipping medical commodities, you can reach me. I'll send the links and stuff. This is just another thing that what I created through habits. Like we've been talking about habits and, commitment to wanting to, be financially stable. So anyways, long story short is the last 5 months I've been traveling I've been to Peru, Puerto Rico, and I'm going to go to Mexico. So, I have a business to where I can live pretty much anywhere I want to. And I created it that way. And it was out of my creation from other industries that I was in. We are talking about timing, like you were saying, because of the experience that I had in those other industry, real estate, I did some digital marketing and other adventures. When I got to this industry, I was like, I knew exactly what to do. And then from there on, I applied it, and then I made it happen. I created a mastermind, and now I help people, and I run my own business too. And that's actually why I'm in an Airbnb right now. I'm actually on St. Pete Beach. And anyways, just wanted to put that in there. If you guys are interested in starting a side income, I can send you a video on what that looks like, and we can go from there.
Yeah.
So
to add to the mastermind concept is, it's not so much the business side to add to as much as it is they say that you become the 5 people that you keep around you. They're the 6th person in that group, but you become the level of their character traits that are dominant. So if you want to be the smartest person, you know, or if you want to be smarter, have 5 people around you you consider to be smarter. If you want to be more wealthy, have people around, 5 people around you who are more wealthy. So it's not get around them for that sole purpose, but understand that if you get around them and learn how they live their life, how they see the world, you start adopting an insight of seeing the world in a similar way that could give you the opportunities to make more money or to become more intelligent or to adapt to the skill sets that you really want to see be part of your life.
Right.
But you do have to come into it with a humble mindset so that you can be taught versus I'm here because you guys owe me. Now you do that. I don't know a whole lot of people that'll keep you around, you know, but if you go into it with, I want to learn from you, it goes directly at the whole, like, you know, people say eat the rich, you know, like this whole thing moving on, you know, I think it's one of the most disempowering concepts you could have.
Yes.
To eat the rich would be, I don't value you, but I want to tear you down. Versus I am really, from where I'm at, I want to have some of what you have, whether it's how much money you have or how much influence or whatever it is. I want to have some of that for myself. So I want to learn it from you, or we are just going to destroy it, take it or destroy it or learn it. You know, and it's just like the same thing. If you teach a man to fish, you've taught him for life. But if you give a man a fish, you've just made one more dependent. You know, it's the same concept. So when it comes to masterminds, it is find a group that, like Michael's here, that can help you see the world through a way that gives you the skills that he's taken advantage of, or that he's developed and able to use for an advantage.
Yes.
So that's what I would say with this, is to consider that putting people around you that can help you see the world differently is always a benefit, to the extent that you can see the world the way that they see it, and you can use that as a benefit.
Totally passionate about building this business. It's like one of the best, probably, you know, it's like my baby, you know, and like your gum.
Yeah.
Remember your gum? Like, this is definitely like my baby. And, you know, like I helped one of my friends that I've known for a while. You know, she's making decent. She's not at 6 figures yet, but she can pay the bills on time now. She can pay for things.
Yeah.
She has peace of mind. And, you know, just to see that, you know, we help a lot. Obviously, we help more people in there. But personally, just seeing her, because I've known her for a while, go from, you know, barely making ends meet to now she's like confident, and she's, you know, she has optimism, and she's paying her bills on time, and she's just looking forward. And that's one of the coolest things to see. That is like, that's one of the best things that I like, because in the beginning I was like, oh, should I just make a course and sell to people? Then I was like, no, I don't want to be like a course person. I want to be somebody that actually helps them and see it through. I want to see people's success through. And so I created the mastermind first, and then I created the course. So yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I feel like in the space of selling, I guess the guru space, you want to call it, there's you know, people are, you know, they're doing the selling the courses, and they're selling good information, and it's helping a lot of people. And I wanted to be different than most people, and so we started the course, we started the mastermind first. And, you know, it's just a lot more fulfilling than just, for me, it's just a lot more fulfilling to see people's success than just sell them a course. And like, it's like we both live our lives separate. I'll never see you again, chat. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I've met a few of those.
So
But yeah, so definitely what I'll do is I will put the some links on the channel so that people can get back to you if that's what they choose. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anything in closing?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing, and having these conversations is huge. I immediately felt comfortable to come on here and have these conversations. So I just want to acknowledge you for having, just having the guts to having, really having the guts to having these kinds of conversations and keeping them alive. And I would love to come back on here and talk again and conversate with you if you want in the future. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. And, I appreciate you stepping forward and having this conversation with me, and look for more of in the future. And this is definitely not the only one that you and I will have. We will definitely come back around and having more. I do this with everybody. It's topics that come up that are, I do avoid certain topics for the time being because of how sensitive they can be. Because I don't want people to get the wrong idea, and words have value. And sometimes those values are perceived to be something that's inaccurate. But when we do have things that come up that are hot topics, even as far as just getting into something as simple as changing the voting age or lowering the voting age, and why would that be a negative versus a positive, those kind of things. So there's all kinds of stuff that we can always talk about, but have the conversation in such a way that we don't polarize it too much, but give more rational thoughts versus the emotional polarization that comes before the rational. So those in the future, we'll have more of those too, I'm sure. But in the meantime, Michael, I want to thank you again for being my guest today on that Chat with Chad. So for everybody who's watching, has got to the end of the video, this is Chad Everett Brochures. I'm the host of Chat with Chad. This show is brought to you by Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. And this is my guest, Michael. And look for the links in the comment section to get back to Michael for anything involving his life, really. But if you're interested in the mastermind portion as well, we'll get a link for you. All right. All right, Michael. Appreciate your time, my man. And we'll talk soon.
See you, Chad. Appreciate it.
See you, buddy. Bye-bye.